Good afternoon, everyone, and hope you've been enjoying a day of live broadcasts and also some videos coming through from what would have been the first day of Queensland Garden Expo up on the Sunshine Coast. Always an awesome time of year, getting around, running around all the different wonderful stages and listening to all the different presentations. A bit different this year, obviously, and it's been great having some of the presentations throughout the course of today, tomorrow, and also Sunday. So if you've caught some of them, you'll be able to watch others on replay or otherwise get tuned into those throughout the course of the weekend. But my name's Matt Carroll. If you know me, I sort of get around to a lot of the stages around that Queensland Garden Expo, and I've sort of been missing having a bit of fun with all my colleagues up there because I'm from dreary Sydney here today, so just in the veggie patch. So it's a nice little spot to be on a coolish day. But to talk irrigation. So what I want to first let you know off the cuff is if you've got any questions regarding irrigation, smart irrigation, that type of thing, pop them in the comments section. They'll pop up and I can come back to those a little bit later if we don't cover them off already. So talks all about smart irrigation for any budget, and one Queensland Garden Expo back, which I sort of came to mind early on the lesser budget, was Colin Campbell, who used to always talk about the soil moisture sensor and how you can go through and be working out your soil requirements just by simply going through and getting in touch with your soil. So sticking your finger in your pots, in your garden beds, and then being able to nourish it with additional water as required. So don't forget that is really a great way to get in tune with your garden. It means that you can be out there checking if you've got any pest disease issues. A morning or afternoon watering is always a good way of getting in contact with your garden and getting in touch in that way, and especially getting to know your soils, knowing how the soil moisture is. But people do go away, not so much of at present, but we thought I'd show you some ways that you can automate some of those systems and some of the newer smarts that are coming through that give you, with some of these systems, a bit more technology behind it, so that there is essentially a finger in the potting soil telling you, or the garden beds telling you, how moist or dry they are most likely to be. So we're going to have a look at all different types of things, and what I've done is I went to my local irrigation supplier, so Watermatic, not too far away from me, and they've loaned me a few products. So I'll show you a whole different host of things that you might look at to get irrigating in your garden. I recommend you go find your local irrigation store, your specialists, your nurseries, and have a chat, because you'll want to be pairing the right product with your needs as well. So that's going to get us underway. But yeah, so on our least budget, of course, we did have the watering can, the hose, going out there, doing it by hand, your irrigation method through there. But water is important across the country, even if you've blessed with so much of it that at times you don't know what to do with it, with floods and the like. But there's always a need to be conserving potable water. So that's water that's coming into your houses, which is for drinking and the like. So it's something that's of topic all around the country. Any event, gardening event, things and the like, they're always looking at irrigation and water conservation in the house. So I'd take you off on a couple of options that you could be looking at. Now, if you are looking at putting a timer, getting your garden watering by itself, the least you need is something like this. Now, I've got this through here. I'll just put it a bit closer to the camera as I do a look at this stretch arm. Look at that, that's one long arm. I do have a person helping me showing things in front of the camera. I thought that was a funny gag to kick off with. That's just your simple twist timer. What it's going to do is it's going to mean that you don't forget to turn it off, okay? Because a lot of water is lost when someone puts on their irrigation, no matter if it's something like drip tubes, soaker hoses, all that type of thing. If you forget about it, it's still going to be using a lot of water. So a twist timer is a great way of getting out and making sure that you're not going to be wasting surplus water. So you're looking normally around the $20, around that sort of price for a basic twist timer. But if you are going to have drippers, sprayers, anything like that, make sure that you do so, because even the most stringent person can be quite forgetful. Okay. And then that takes us to a sort of next layer of controller, which is anywhere, these vary a lot in terms of price points, but something that you could look at are your little digital controllers. So I'll show you that one up through there. These normally run on AA's or 9-volt batteries, but these are something that, especially if you've got plants that you really need to tend to. Now, in the time that I'm not at gardening events and traveling around, I look after things, vertical gardens, so green walls and beds like that. Now, if you forget to irrigate that type of garden, you end up with a brown wall very quickly. So a irrigation system that's automated is going to take out that human error and going to be able to deliver a bit more water through there conveniently and not too expensively. So basic timers like that, you're not looking at big dollars, but if I was putting it on something that I was more worried about, I'd be finding something that was a more reliable system. There's some that connect to Bluetooth that do all manner of different connection points. Bluetooth is an interesting one, and I know a lot of people love a bit of technology. So if you are someone who likes programming things via your phone, you can find that a lot of the newer timers, that you can actually schedule them using your phone, connecting via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi as well. So there's different options, and we'll look at some more elaborate systems as well as just the general layout of irrigation as well. But I thought I'd give you a feel for some of the equipment beforehand. Another type to be mindful of, and what actually makes an irrigation system smart, is typically if you're including a controller in it. So, sorry, got the controller, if you're putting a sensor in it. So this is just a different type of controller, and hopefully you can see that. That's one's connected to an irrigation valve, and this one's a bit more commercial in size and scope. But what makes these ones better for irrigating, especially during times of water restrictions and the like, you'll find that you'll have to be incorporating things like this. This is a basic rain sensor. So they'll go through, rain comes through, moisten it, changes the connectivity within it, and that's what will actually turn on and off your irrigation system, depending what you've programmed through there. But that's a great addition, and really a minimalist item that you should be having on your controller. But the whole thing everyone's moving to now is more smart controllers, which I'll show you a few of those, and they do vary in prices. And obviously with these, there's ones that work connected to your tap, others that go through and involve more serious installations, something you'd more likely get an irrigation professional to come in, landscaper to put in. But there are some super small ones. The one that I've been playing around with are these, and again, it just looks like a normal irrigation station. Nothing too much on the front, because it's all programmed via your phone. So you're going to be going in through there, connecting. This one is actually a Bluetooth device. So you're using your smartphone, pairing across, and I know for some people that seems very painful, but the benefits are really there once you find out what you can be doing with these smarter irrigation systems. Okay, and something like that, you're looking in the just over $100 for the Bluetooth styled system, and not much more for the ones that then become Wi-Fi operated. And the benefit is that you can actually track what's happening with your devices once you go into the Wi-Fi side of things from anywhere in the world. As long as you've got signal on your phone, you can be dialing in there and checking that the watering's been coming on. So instead of relying on that neighbor for that, well, you won't be going overseas anytime soon, I'm guessing, but a lovely interstate travel perhaps, or even just exploring your own state or territory, you could be going through and having a look at checking that things have been going on. And they also deliver some level of adjustment for rain periods and the like as well. So something so worthwhile, because if you can imagine, if you're away and you don't have a rain sensor type system or anything through there, and it's raining the whole time you're away, your irrigation is going to be coming on irrespective. So try and think about upgrading perhaps some of that older technology you might have, because you'll find that you get a lot more success. I was at a soils event earlier this morning where they were talking about the importance of drainage, and was the importance of drainage, but also the importance of air within your soils and potting mixes. And if you're overwatering, not only you're wasting water, but you're also blocking up all those air spaces with essentially wasteful water, which is not good for the plants, and it's not good, you know, obviously for water use. So minimizing your water use and using it efficiently is actually good for your plant health. It's not a case of the more the merrier. So a lot of these you can go through, and this one you can see, I'm just going to show, if you, the Bluetooth type ones, you connect onto your tap and just control them through that way. These ones actually has a little Wi-Fi bridge, so then you're plugging that in just like a dongle within the house. That connects to your Wi-Fi, and then you're connecting the Wi-Fi across to the device itself, and then it'll be actually daisy chain. So if you can have one little dongle and daisy chain lots of little different controllers around your house, and they go through and sync across with each other. So a nice easy way that you can just put them on into an easy residential setting where perhaps you don't want to be running what is the more technical way of doing it, which is doing solenoid valves and solenoid wires, where you've got various valves, of which I've misplaced one of my valves. Here comes, well, this is a valve coming in through here. So these are the type that you'll find in commercial settings and in a lot of residential gardens, controlled by this, going back to some of the computers, which I'll show in a second. But again, you're looking for the actual technology you got through there. It's a bit over $100 for the basic Bluetooth one, so it's not too out there. There's different brands. Have a look at different options through there. Another type one, and again, this is one that sort of looks at utilizing. We're getting bigger and we're getting more expensive, and we're getting cleaner, because otherwise I won't be able to return my loan products. But this is one that's more for a larger, well, for residential as well. You can have these from 6 stations, so that's six different irrigation areas that you could be turning on and off. They all work by that more complicated system where you're actually putting the different cables in. They're going to be turning on different zones at different times. But this is actually the type of system that I use for my veggie garden, because behind you there's actually a greenhouse, and I'll tell you why I use a more complicated system for my place. And it's largely because whilst I do want things to be factored in, so if it's rained all week or if it's been cold, it will adjust on those parameters. But behind you, which you can't see, is a greenhouse. Now if it rains, it doesn't get any rain in the greenhouse, so it sort of runs on its own different schedule, and you can bypass some of those things. Now you might not have a greenhouse, but what you might have is a house with pots sitting along a veranda that's not going to get any water come any rain, and also items like indoor plantscapes, green walls and the like. You can bypass that factoring for climate side of things. But the best thing is I can dive in, and I was going to get my colleague's phone to show you how you can dive into some of these platforms, and there's similar between them, but you can go through. There we go. So this is his phone. Ooh, he works as a landscape professional across through Sydney, but you can go through, you can actually see forecasts for weather activity, and it'll actually adjust depending what he's set the parameters to based on that type of information. And if he's wanting to turn on a system, perhaps it's a really hot day, or perhaps someone's, you're worried that something's not working, you can actually turn on various parts of your garden remotely, again, from any part of the world. So it's quite interesting time where you can be sitting and actually looking at your phone, and if someone's called up with a problem, for me personally, but if it's you as a homeowner or landscaper, you could be going through and actually testing that something works remotely. So something I've used multiple times on places, especially interstate, where you might want to be checking in from time to time. So there's different brands in those. Again, they all work slightly differently. Chat to your irrigation professional, but a lot of people aren't aware of what is reasonably affordable these days in one facet or the other technology available to gardeners to be saving water out there. Something else that is cool, which is, again, this is looking more at the high end, but some of the smaller products like that little battery one that I showed you before will do a similar thing. It'll actually check for leaks as well, so you can connect in all sorts of flow meters. So if a pipe bursts or for whatever reason the water doesn't come on, you can actually be sent notifications and things like that remotely. So again, if your garden's precious to you, you might be a collector of plant materials, as I know a lot of Queensland Garden Expo people are very keen gardeners and collectors. Something like that might be perhaps a good investment. And again, it's mainly just showing you that there is technology out there. So that's the controlling side of things. But what we really probably should hark back to is also the more basic side of irrigation systems, which comes down to a large part of it, irrigation pipe. Okay, so you're going through, running through all the various different types of 13 mil, 19 mil. If you've got a larger garden, I do recommend, again, go and chat to a professional, because they'll tell you how many different types of sprinklers and things you can run for your particular needs. Because if you're trying to cover a huge garden with large water emitters using 13 mil pipe, you're going to run into problems where it's not going to be working properly for you. So they'll also tell you where you might have to put in bits and pieces that might be a bit new to you. It might be things like pressure regulators, which this is a really basic one, and filters, but it sort of shows you between the two. So little pressure regulators mean that drip tubes, lower emitters can work to their peak performance, and then the filters in those obviously stopping any blockages coming through. Okay, so a little cheap part like that on any irrigation use system you have, be it a smart system or the most basic plug and play one, can save you a lot of grief, because you won't be going through and blocking all your little heads and getting all manner of goodies in there. So that's just a one that I've got set through here. So to explain how I've got my garden, this is a little veggie garden, so I've got 3 beds that run across here, and seedlings that herbs and that which are grown across the top. But I've got these slightly differently set up in that I have drip tube. So this is that brown tube, which you might see in a lot of landscapes. This is the smaller form of it. You'll also see one that's about the same size as this tube. But inside, these are great. So you'll see that they've got holes at regular spacings, hopefully. Yeah, there'll be a hole somewhere around there, a hole somewhere around there. But on the back side, you've actually got, it's a little web, a little maze for the water to make its way out. And it's actually the water making its way through that little maze. The friction losses on that mean that it comes out at a very nice regular emission per hole. So these are great. You can put them out there and know how much water you're delivering to a certain space by how many holes you have essentially within the square meter. We've got the cockatoos coming in for a play. They like getting into the macadamia and other trees around through here. So things like drip tube are great, but sometimes you've got little seedlings that you want to be raising. Phil was on earlier talking about raising smaller seedlings, and whilst they establish their root system outside of their pots, I actually have it that I have these little upper misters, so I can actually throw them on. They'll turn on, just put surface water on, but then once the seedlings have established, there's obviously these lettuces and the like have, that can be turned off and just rely on the drip tube running through there, which keeps them all looking happy and healthy. So but drip tube is a great addition. You can get ones if you're on the steepest of blocks, some that are pressure regulated, so they'll stop it leaking more at the bottom than at the top. There's a whole myriad of different great technologies, again, if you go and explore perhaps upgrading some of the irrigation type systems you have. But the bulk of it is still just this basic type of tube that you're going to be working with, the connectors, putting on the wonderful ratchet clamps and the like. Now, in terms of larger emitters, and it could be that you still run shrub heads and other things where you're looking for a bit more water coming out. You might be running off tank water, where your options are, open to really how you choose to be irrigating through there. But again, without wasting it, you can look at different types of heads as well. And there's a whole different range of, it's hard to demonstrate this without soaking everyone. So that's your standard type of irrigation head that could go into a body. So this is a pop-up lawn sprinkler, okay? So that would sit on top of that with the pressure pops up. But these are actually a bit different than your traditional ones in that they put water out in a more controlled pattern. Because what you don't want to do is be putting out a whole lot of surface water and then going through and having to be wasting water as it sheets off the surface. So a little controller, a little head like that can be great. You can adjust them down to different angles so that they go through and don't spread out onto the path. And if you're scheduling it at the right time, you can make sure that you're not having problems with things like wind blowing it out onto driveways, pathways, all those types of problems that you might find with your regular system. Now, one thing that people do struggle with though, with their irrigation, is that they never know when they change to something like drip tube, they never know when it's running, okay? And it can be quite deceitful in terms of it sits there, it doesn't make much noise except for when it starts. You can just hear it sort of blowing out a couple of bubbles through those little mazes, and then it's pretty much quiet. So I used to have a lady that used to have a garden. She was always worried that it was never turning on. So, and I used to have to drive out there to check that it had turned on every time. But with the new technology, I could be checking it remotely. But for peace of mind, these are just a fun thing, which I thought for those of you that might, like to be able to spot it. These little flags, they just pop up with the water pressure. So when the irrigation comes on, you can look at your garden bed, wherever it might be, and see your little flag coming up. And obviously when it's off, it'll go back down like that. So that's a good little visual indicator. It sort of reassures you, especially if you're a little bit anxious, again, about your prized veggie patch perhaps fizzling away. And then unless you go out there and check it yourself, that's a way that you can go through it and check it out visually. So essentially, that's the main thing with all the different types of technology. Again, the main aim was just to make you aware of some of these different devices that you might like to incorporate into your garden as a full stop through there, but also go through and connect with those that sort of work in this space, because you'll find there's a whole range of stuff out there which you might not be aware of. They could be saving a lot of money, but also a lot of water. So you'll be spending a bit of money, obviously, buying these types of things, but you'll be saving water. And it also does mean that come water restrictions, if they come into a particular area, you can be dealing with that as well. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions. If you do have any questions, throw them up onto the live stream through there. I'm just trying to think if I grabbed any other goodies through here that I might have missed out in my thing. So we covered off drip tube, we covered off through all there. Such a shame we don't have the event on this year, but it's, as I say, great that we've been able to connect. Over the next couple of days, we're going to be chatting with some of the other garden personalities that you probably come to know, both for being on TV and various other roles, but also at the event itself with the myriad of presentations that take place over the several stages at Queensland Garden Expo. But it's been great to be able to do it in this format for today anyway, so that you can at least from the comfort of your couch get out there and we're sort of putting the vid or the garden vid in COVID for the weekend here, so you can come and find some great information. If you haven't caught any of the other previous videos today, we had Kevin Red on with turmeric earlier this morning. Phil Dubman was also coming and talking about how you could be raising your own beautiful seedlings using punnets inside, so you can be going through and having a look at that. We've got Costa coming up over the weekend, all manner of other presentations, so check the program. It's live on the various platforms. If you've got any questions through there, obviously after this video's gone offline, you'll be able to post it through there. I'll check in on it anyway and hope to steer you in the right direction. But hope you're enjoying your time. Go check out your local garden centre. Plenty of plants going into gardens at the moment. There's quite the rush. The more the merrier, so get out and about in the garden and see if you can. Oh, here we go. We've got a question that's come in through here, so what I'll do is I'll just look across here. I've converted all my beds to PVC as I find it much easier to use. I wish I had started with this instead of the black tubing. Okay, so PVC, so that's a harder plastic, more like your storm pipes, down pipes in the plastic form, and they are great for, especially you see it used in a lot of commercials. So that's a harder plastic. It's a bit more time to put them together, but yeah, definitely in terms of being tough. They are great. So yeah, good tip through there, Cheryl. So if you are interested in getting out there with your PVC solvents and playing around through there, you can have a good bit of fun there. What do we got? Deanne, some awesome tech. Yeah, so there is a whole hope of technology, and as I say, like basic controllers that have these smart features built in within them can go through and you're looking at, you know, from just over $100 up to, you know, several $100s for the higher rated ones that do more obvious things. But there's some starter tech that it's, you know, not that too pricey to begin with. One thing I should have mentioned with the some of the other systems too, if you're someone who's really into weather stations and that type of caper, you can actually connect it to your own local weather station right at your place. So that's something fun if you're someone who's keen to that style thing with the higher grade or higher level irrigation system controllers. You can connect into different things like that. Otherwise, they use local weather data, be it from airports and also other local weather stations. So you are getting good local intel, but if you don't believe it, unless you can count it in your rain catcher, that's an option for you. I'm going to see Leanne, thank you for the tips. No worries. Hopefully that's been informative. I often think that, you know, gardeners are so keen, so doting on our plants and things like that, and when we do manage to get away to, you know, be it traveling around, say again, our region, you don't want to be worried about them. So this is more or less like the way of being able to check in on them online and playing through there. So I've just got my friend showing me, this is again some of those variability that you can put through there. So it's got different options you can set through there, different triggers for different things. So if you wanted to factor in wind, you know, how fast the wind's blowing, how hot it is. I can't see which one we're up to through there, but different temperature ranges and the like. That's the level of complexity. You can dial it in if you're into that thing. If not, you can sort of simplify it. Just make sure you're not forgetting to turn your tap off, essentially. So that's all good through there. Oh, here we go. Another one. Cheryl, what's the best Bluetooth device for distances? Most of them don't allow for this. Okay. So Bluetooth, you are going to be limited. There's different grades of Bluetooth. So the latter Bluetooth, so sort of from 2.0 through 4, the latter ones will give you a greater reach between the device and the actual item itself. If you're looking to do a Bluetooth device, I like, if you can pass me that Orbit one through there. Just the box will do. Yeah. These ones are cool for if you want to be reaching a little bit further. So this is a Bluetooth controller. So that's how that works, but it connects across to a Wi-Fi hub. Okay, so that's like a bridge between. So your Wi-Fi connects to this, and then that connects to this. They've got quite a good range. So I've found that to have a reasonable Bluetooth range. With the hub, obviously that extends it that you can be much further away. And that's not an expensive little controller. You can pick that up in hardware stores and the like. Yeah, they run on, can you actually pass me the controller? It's just here. Very simple. It just has a little tray, AA batteries, okay? You normally find that they run on AA or 9-volt batteries, but a simple little device. And the thing I like about this style with no buttons is that people don't tinker with them as much. So hopefully that helps you out. But as I say, there's lots of different brands, different options out there, but some great technology coming through. So I hope that all helps. Oh, here we go. We've got another question. So Terry Lee, do you have a preference between the sprinkler or drip style irrigation? Okay, so I do. I do in context of how I'm utilizing it. So if I've got planting beds that are where the root system's established, drip style tubes and the like are fine. So I can actually lay these out and know a whole lot of information. They don't block up. It only takes one little blockage in that to block it up, whereas I've got lots of little holes weeping away to set amount of water per hour per hole. So if I'd say irrigating a bed with seedlings coming through, obviously drip tube can be a bit more spaced out for those young roots because they're not quite down into that soil mix, so you're going to have issues with that. And that's why this type of bed, which I've got through here, I've just got the backup that whilst establishing new seedlings, I might just turn this spray head on to come on at the same time as the drippers, just to begin with. And you could have set that up on a separate line as well, which is the normal way, but for these beds it works quite well. As soon as they're established a little basic root system, I can turn that off and just rely on the drip, because the drip's great. You don't lose any spray mist, less evaporation, all the other. So it's great. The only main problem with it is, yeah, small roots, smaller plants, and also just the fear not being able to know that it's on. So hopefully that helps through there. So I might leave you with that. So we've hit 2:30, the ending point for the chats. As I mentioned, any other items that you might have, if you've got look at those other videos that have happened over the course of the today already, and then coming on through the next couple of days. Should be a whole lot of fun, whole lot of information, and it's just good to be able to chat gardening with you all. Even though Queensland Garden Expo isn't happening in person at the moment, it's happening in spirit over the interwebs. So we hope you join in for some of those other talks. I'll be popping back again tomorrow as well. So enjoy the rest of the weekend. Get out in the garden, and you can test your soil moisture meters out there and get gardening. We'll catch you later.